What's going on, y'all? It's the Buttadawgz. Dogs are the Butta. And welcome back to the Kennel. The Kennel is a creative space in Sacramento for artists to put their talent on display. And today in the Kennel, we have Jazzy on the mic.
Woo!
Jazzy, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course.
And I wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to the people, who you are, what you're about, and what you do.
Well, obviously I'm Jazzy. Jazzy on the mic, otherwise known. I make music, I draw, I dance. Right now I'm in school for psychology. I do a lot of activism work in the community. If you see me doing something, I'm doing something always. I've tried to step out of the party scene as much as I can, but I love to shake ass, so unfortunately you might catch me there too. So I'll be everywhere.
Nah, period. That's what's up. And when did you initially just start creating? Like you happy October, it's Halloween, you know what I'm saying? You got the whole aesthetic going on, you know what I'm saying? She got it. Ooh, popping.
Yeah.
And you just seem like a very creative person in general. When did that all start? When did Jazzy on the mic begin?
Well, I feel like it depends what art form you're talking about, but with music, I wrote my first song in 3rd grade, and it was a knockoff of a Taylor Swift song, I'm not even gonna lie. But I remember my mom telling me, don't talk to this one boy in my class in 3rd grade going to White Rock Elementary, shout out Rancho. And she was like, don't talk to that kid because he was throwing up gang signs in our class picture. So, of course, I liked him. My mom told me not to, and I was like, oh, he's kind of cute. And I wrote my first song about him back then. But I feel like me, myself, being an only child up until I was 15, and the middle child in the family that I was raised in, I was kind of constantly having to find ways to be like, look at me, in a positive way, or else I get my ass beat. So I feel like when I figured out I could sing, that was a big thing. I grew up in the church, and then when I figured out I could draw, I started doing that. When I figured out I could do other creative shit, it was always like, oh, I need to do this and be the best I can at it. So I ended up doing just a bunch of shit.
Do you still remember that song about that boy?
I do not, and I wish I did. But all I remember is that I heard Love Story by Taylor Swift, and I was like, yeah. And then
that made you think of him.
It was a badass remake of it.
Hey, banger though.
Yeah, that was my first paid gig. At 7 years old, I was 7 or 8, and I got paid like $5 to sing it in front of one of my uncle's colleagues, work people. So,
and you sang that song.
Sang my little heart out.
So that's where it all started.
Yeah.
That's where. And how did that performance go? Like, were you the reactions you got after that, and like just the reactions you elicited from the crowd? That's when you were like, I like that.
I think I just liked making music. I like listening to music. I have a big connection to music. Like, even just like listening to other people's, like, my body's gonna start moving instantly. I can't help it. My hands gonna start tapping. But I feel like the first time I like performed a song, even like way back then, I think it was more of the feeling I felt when I was doing my artwork to my fullest extent. Because I feel like when you're doing your music alone in your room or whatever, don't get me wrong, you're doing it. But when you're doing it for other people to hear, it's almost like you're pushing your biggest self because you want other people to see how dope you are. And in a way that reminds you of how dope you are to yourself too, not just to other people.
And you mentioned family again. I also do this for family. My parents were here for a reason. Love my family. And you said you were the middle child?
Okay, so it's tricky. So my brother is 8 years old. That is damn near my son. That's how I feel. I love him to death.
Oldest sibling. Shout out oldest siblings for always raising us.
But I grew up with my my aunt and my uncle, and so I have a lot of older cousins. But I'm the oldest of the not 90s babies. So I'm born in 2001, and then there's like 3 of us after that. And so I have like a bunch of 90s kids, cousins, and then there's me, and then there's my other cousins that are below me.
Yes. Big ass family.
And, I mean, in a way, my mom's adopted. My mom and aunt are blood sisters, but other than that, they're adopted. So a lot of the family I have is like chosen family, because a lot of my mom's family unfortunately don't fuck with me because I'm black. So I love that. But
and that's I'd assume that means you come from a biracial family. We talked about this earlier.
Yes, the 49%.
And just how would you say that that's influenced what you've been doing, and how have you had to kind of, as also a biracial person, kind of navigate that dynamic of being a part of a white family, a part of a Filipino family, your black representation's not around?
First, I would like to start out with, this is not me going, oh, the poor little mixed girl, because I don't do that. But I would say,
Feel free.
It was definitely interesting only because a lot of people talk about like growing up with both sides and how it affects you, but I feel like the understanding is just not always there. Like, I didn't understand that I wasn't like everybody else. The only thing I was like, oh, my uncle is the same skin color as me, so that has to be my dad. Until they were like, no, that's not your dad. And I was like, what the fuck? Oh, okay. So I was like, I'm adopted. And they're like, no, that is your mother. And I'm like, nah. I honestly didn't believe that until I was like 11 years old. Until like we found old pictures of me being born. And even then I was like, Photoshop. Can't be. And then growing up in kind of like both back and forth communities, anytime I was living with my mom, I was growing up in like Rancho, Sacramento. And then when I was with my aunt, I was living in Folsom, and I kind of just got thrown back and forth between both communities. But there was always an obvious view of which community I was accepted in more, which was the black community. Growing up, I was kind of the poster child for like teaching my family, you can't say that. You can't say that to people. And so it was growing up with a lot of self-hatred for who I was and not understanding. Like, my biggest accomplishment is my hair, because they killed it. My hair got shaved, my hair got relaxed, my hair got fucked up. Even like when it comes to my skin, I was so embarrassed of how I looked compared to my family, because I was just like, there was no representation, and there was no pride in who I was unless I was in other people's households. So it was definitely it was a time. And then being like submerged in other people's cultures. Like, I grew up with my uncle and one of my cousins. Technically all of my cousins are Filipino. My blood aunt, yeah. So I grew up making lumpia, I grew up making pancit. All of my cultural traditions growing up were Filipino culture. So it was definitely interesting. Even my cousins who look white as day are half Filipino. And so for the longest time, I was like, shit, I'm going to just do this. I don't know shit about being black, but I know how to be Filipino. And then once I got to a certain age, when I was like in middle school, people were like, you can't do that. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, I guess I got to start learning about myself. But I feel like that really influenced me to be as prominent as I am in the activism community, with teaching kids about where they come from and their love for their cultures, even if that wasn't taught to you by your parents and shit.
Type shit. And being from such a diverse family, I feel like that kind of just made it easier for you to immerse yourself in Sacramento. Like, Sacramento is such like a hub of culture and people from around the world, and just food, everything that's got going on. How has it been submerging yourself in Sacramento and also being able to advocate for your community?
I'd say it was wonderful. Like, growing up, once I got stable and I was like stably in one spot and I wasn't bouncing around, I grew up the most in Rancho Cordova. And Rancho is a lot of Hispanic culture, it's a lot of black culture, and it's a lot of I would say like Russian, Ukrainian culture. And it was amazing. I just feel like I love to see other people like really being themselves and being who their families are, and that was just great to see. Also, I grew up a lot with the Hispanic culture after my brother was born, because he's half Mexican. And so I love culture of all kinds, even if it's not mine, just because it's, what's the word, it's refreshing seeing people have generations passed down of who they are, because it took me a while to figure out who I was. And so it's just nice sometimes to see people know who they are, and if not, know who their families are, and even then know sort of a guideline of where they can be or who they're supposed to be. Even if it doesn't resonate with them, you kind of know where to lean. And I didn't have that for a long time, so I love to see that in other people.
That's what you spoke about. You work with kids and you work with the community, and you're very immersed in that. Is that what you try to get children to understand, is kind of like the power of who they are, and you have the opportunity to kind of guide your own future and what you want to be and who you want to do, but to initially do that, you got to understand who you are. Is that what you try to kind of advocate for?
Yeah, I would say that a big part of what I do, honestly, I do a lot of mental work with the community. Right now, I'm a behavioral technician for children with autism, and then I do a lot of social justice work in the community. But I feel like a first step of understanding who you want to be is knowing where you came from, and then breaking down what's healthy from that, taking it. A lot of times, I feel like, especially with our generation, 2000s kids, 90s kids, we were raised on systems that were abusive, but it was like it wasn't as abusive as how my mom treated me, so it's not bad, like being told like, oh, I beat you, but my grandma used to beat me with a wire, so it's not that bad, and shit like that. And then picking healthy habits out of the cultures that we were raised with and being able to run with it is very important. I feel like, again, I was the poster child for figuring out what was healthy and what wasn't. And so I kind of try to implement that in my community work and teaching kids, like, it's okay to be who you are, but it's also okay to not be like what you were around.
Type. You gotta because if you're not gonna validate it, who is? And especially if you a father, if you got older siblings or younger siblings, you know what I'm talking about. Somebody's got to validate it. Somebody has to stop the generational trauma. So you've been able to take it upon your shoulders, which is a heavy burden to carry. And I'll be honest, shout out my sisters. They weren't here tonight, but they did that for me. I'm the baby of my family. So having somebody like that was in your position to look up to, it made it a lot easier. But I am grateful I was never in that position to have to do that for somebody else.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting because when I was younger, I was always just like the crash out cousin. But I feel like people who know
sorry,
me
what do you mean by that though?
Like crash out, like I very much stood on what I felt was okay and what wasn't, even if the entire family was like,
you had to speak up.
Yeah, like, because again, I was the first one to tell my auntie she can't say certain things about race. I grew up with white families who would say nigga a lot, and when I got to a certain age, it was like, that's not okay. I refuse to let you keep saying that, and I'm finna fight that battle until you stop, or I'm finna not talk to none of y'all. And I feel like it was like that same way that I had to be with everything. I had to really stand on business before standing on business was a phrase. Like, I feel like the way I had to deal with my family was the way you deal with a fucking dog. Like, you keep spraying it with a spray bottle until they understand that it's not okay. And that's just what it was. I was going to keep spraying that bottle until I had no more water.
Type. And then I feel like that's also something you're able to convey in your music, like with what you were talking about. Fuck that nigga, fuck him, somebody got you fucked up, fuck whoever's like bothering you in that situation. How have you been able to use music as an outlet to really, bring your emotions out, to really be able to present what you're thinking, present what's on your mind?
I feel like because I grew up in households where my opinion wasn't respected, it wasn't wanted. The main reason I got in trouble growing up was asking why for everything. And not no like stupid little kid, like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? I really just didn't understand like what was going on. And I wanted to understand. That's a big reason I'm a psych major, is because I want to understand everything if I'm able to. And when it came to music, I feel like a lot of times when you listen to songs, you listen to them because you relate to them, right? But because my past is so outrageous and so nothing like I've heard other people speak about, I had to create my own music to find comfort in the opposites how other people are with music, where they listen to music to relate to it. I had to create my own music to find something that I could relate to and find something that I had comfort in. So a lot of my music that I'm trying to push now more, because when I first started making music, I was just trying to go with what people wanted to hear from me. But I feel like my favorite songs and the stuff that I've been performing recently is a lot of stuff that it's like, this is what made me feel better writing it. I hope it touches other people too, but a lot of the times, shit, it's just for me. Most of the time I listen to my own music because I'm just like, yeah, you really spitting, bitch. Like, you talking some real shit and these niggas don't know. But it really came from me being young and really niggas didn't know. I didn't talk about a lot that was going on with me. And I feel like being raised in Sacramento, and especially in Rancho, you kind of had to be hard body no matter what was going on. And showing emotions made you a bitch and it made you weak. And if you talked about anything going on in your family, it made you a snitch. If you talking about your mom, you talking about your auntie, your family. And so a lot of it I had to keep to myself. And there was like only a certain point that I could be there till I was like exploded. I felt like a whistleblower. And I feel like I had to get some of that emotion in a place where it was okay. And I remember the first time I ever like really talked my shit. I don't know if y'all remember when Bubba Got Beats became more popular out here in Sacramento, but he makes a lot of like beats, and he does a lot of production stuff. And there was this trend that was going around, and it was like a freestyle, and whoever did the best freestyle got to work with him. And it was the first time I like really talked about what was going on with me, and I posted it and I deleted it within 10 minutes because I'm like, they gonna think I'm a bitch. They gonna call me weak. And then now that's what I do like all the time. That's the type of music I make. Because I mean, if I'm weak, I wouldn't be here. So
real, real. Because you really had to get it out the mud yourself. If somebody else was
really had to get it out the mud. Like I've been homeless. I've dealt with addiction, and I've dealt with generational addiction. I've dealt with generational abuse. So it's like I said, I got a lot to talk about, and if I don't, it's gonna take over me eventually. And I feel like I've seen a lot of the other people in the community that I grew up with get taken over by things like drugs and gangs and things like that. And I feel like it's understandable. I feel like a lot of people will demonize that, but have no idea what you went through to be put in that position. And so a big part of what I do for the community is helping people before they get to that point. Because, you know, a lot of times when kids get involved in gangs, it's early on. And I feel like drugs, gangs, you know, fast money, I feel like a lot of it is just looking for a place to fit in and looking for comfort. And it's so easy to find comfort in the wrong things when you have nobody telling you where you're supposed to get comfort from. Everybody's going to tell you what's wrong, but nobody's going to tell you how to manage without it.
Damn.
My bad.
You good. No, you good. I really appreciate you being vulnerable in the space, and I really appreciate you. I feel like everybody been nodding this entire time. I feel like you saying some shit that everybody can relate to, and being able to talk your shit the way you have been able to. It inspires people to be able to. And like you said, that was the inspiration you wanted to be for not only your family, but an inspiration for your community. So I really appreciate you taking your time out your day to speak with us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an older sister, so I feel like my biggest goal is to make sure my brother don't go through anything that I went through. And he has someone that's constantly telling him the right way to do things, or at least the right direction to go to. And that's my biggest goal, is to make sure that the littles around me have a voice and know how to find their voice without doing damages in ways to feel like they're uplifting it.
Tight. We appreciate you, bro. We got a camera right here. We got a camera right there. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anything you want to plug.
You
Shows coming up.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, JOTM 2.0. My TikTok is JOTM 2.1. I can't do Jazzy on the Mic anywhere because there's some Instagram account that's like an old porn account from like 2009 that won't get deleted no matter what I do. So everything's got to be my name abbreviated for now. I have a show coming up on the 27th, Sound of Art. You can find the link in my bio. I have a community event on the 19th. It's kind of like a donation fair thing. Basically, like you donate books, toiletries, cans of food. You get some tickets. You can play games inside the little fair that we created. And that's a mentorship program that I'm doing right now through Elevate Youth, which is sponsored by Greater Sacramento Urban League. So, yeah.
Right. Jazzy, we really appreciate you joining us today in the Kennel.
Period. Yeah.
And as always, y'all, we'll catch y'all on the next installment of The Kennel. And for now, Buttadawgz out. Woo. Peace.
Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe Buttadawgz on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.